forward if you'd like. Obviously, if you're not comfortable, but please do consider, we're a small group, and it'll make for a better dialogue.
I told you. So do I.
It helps the cameraman.
So welcome, everybody. I hardly need to introduce myself to pretty much everybody in the room. I'm Debbie Reisner, and I thank you for coming this evening. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters for Rye, Rybrook, and Worcester. Before we begin, there's a few things to know about the League of Women Voters. The League is nonpartisan. We do not support or oppose candidates. We are all about the encouraging, the informed, and active participation of people in our government at all levels and regardless of party affiliation. In fact, that's why we're here tonight. It's the fully informed and active participation part. This is a forum where the people who are seeking election to the positions of school board trustee can come together to explain their positions and share their ideas calmly and with civility. So who's qualified to vote in this election? Anyone registered to vote with the school district or with the Westchester Board of Elections in White Plains. If you're not yet registered, you can still do so in person only at any of the offices in the school between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. The last day to register with the district to vote on this budget is Wednesday, May 13th. And there will be an all-day registration from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., but only in the Central District Business Office. I hope you'll consider joining the League. Membership forms are on the table in the back, and we'd love to have you. Information about this election can be found on our school website and also on the League's website, which is smartvoter.org. We've invited our candidates to upload information about themselves there, including biographies, their most important positions for the campaign, links to their websites. This evening's program is being recorded by LMC-TV, so you can watch tapes of this. We'll be repeating until Election Day. Our timekeepers this evening are Nate Levin and Susan Jensen, both of Rye. I'd like to add that Mr. Levin was president of the League of Women Voters a number of years ago, our local chapter, that is. And Susan is currently our vice president. Our moderator this evening is Laura Fratt, who is a member of the Scarsdale League and is a former president of that league, and she's also the coordinator for moderators for the entire Westchester League. So with that, to Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, and welcome everyone. Okay, excellent. Perfect. Okay. Welcome, and I'd like to thank everyone again for coming this evening to hear the school board candidates' views. There are 2 seats available on the Rhinebeck School Board this year. The ground rules for this evening's event are as follows. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to make an opening statement. At the conclusion of opening statements, candidates will then have the opportunity to answer questions from the floor. Questions must be brief and must address issues. Each person asking the question will have 30 seconds in which to ask your question, and the candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. If you would like to direct your question to a particular candidate, you may do so, but all candidates will have an opportunity to respond to the question. Each candidate, the timekeeper will notify the candidates when 30 seconds remain and when time is up. Finally, at the conclusion of the audience question and answer period, we'll have closing statements. Rebuttals, if any, are to be included in the closing statements. We'll now begin with the opening statements. Earlier this evening, at the roll of a dice, we determined the order in which the candidates will speak. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce all three candidates in the order in which they'll speak, and then we'll begin. We have Ms. Cathy O'Keefe, Mr. Al Hodys, and Ms. Emily Marshall. This evening, Cathy O'Keefe will begin with the first opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for coming tonight. A special thanks to our own Debbie Reisner. Amazing job. My name is Cathy O'Keefe, and I am running for my second term as trustee. My husband and I have lived here in Mamaroneck for 19 years. We have 3 children. 2 are graduates of Rhinebeck High School and are both presently enrolled in college, and 1 is a freshman here at Rhinebeck High School. All my children have been at Rhinebeck School since kindergarten. I hold a BS degree in economics and business, and I've worked in media for 13 years before I started raising my family. My platform for re-election is very simple: excellence and commitment. I've been a committed volunteer in this district since 1992, with those efforts culminating in serving a 2-year term as president of the Rhinebeck PTSA, albeit in a previous millennium. I have been a board member of the Mamaroneck Community Nursery School, the Rhinebeck Community Fund, and the Rhinebeck Student Aid Fund. I volunteered for over a decade with the Rhinebeck office of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Youth Employment Service right here at the high school, and I also served on 2 principal advisory committees at both Bellows and the middle school. As a volunteer, and most importantly as a trustee, my mission has been to promote excellence in the Rhinebeck School District. Excellence in education, excellence in responsible and prudent spending of taxpayer dollars, excellence in Rhinebeck's position in the greater Westchester community at large. I am proud to say that my children attend Rhinebeck. I am thrilled when people are impressed and comment on Rhinebeck's stellar reputation. There are many people here tonight who are responsible for Rhinebeck's current and hard-won standing, and my service to this district is my only way of saying thank you to them for all the hard work that they have done. In my first term as trustee, I was able to be part of the school's grade realignment, which was a plan I volunteered diligently to promote. The realignment, just now completing its first year, has proven to be a huge success. On the board, I presently sit on the audit committee, and I am the board liaison to the special services department. Thank you.
Mr. Hodys?
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, and thank you all for coming. As a project manager for an IT consulting company, I have a different perspective from the other candidates. I approach board service with a global perspective as someone who, on an everyday basis, manages a budget, is responsible for P&L, hires and fires employees, and is exposed to the latest information and communications technology. I live in New York and I work in Washington, D.C., and I am a part of the 21st century environment that our students will ultimately enter. The district is the largest employer in Rhinebeck, and it is being confronted by a tough economy with dropping revenues and increased costs. There are going to be difficult decisions to be made in the future, and in my career I do have a lot of experience working with a team to accomplish a particular goal with clearly defined and limited resources. Beyond next year's budget, I am excited to engage in strategic planning for the next 3, 5, and 7 years. To talk, for example, about a high school library that no longer functions as a warehouse of hard copy books, but as a workhouse for collaborative project-based learning. To identify best practices in consultation with subject matter experts, and to set policy in accordance with the values and priorities of the community, while always being mindful of the great tax burden placed upon the residents of the district. I believe that our school board should be comprised of people with diverse and complementing skill sets, backgrounds, and perspectives. As a business professional engaged in the global technology industry, as a former attorney, as a working dad with children at Daniel Warren, as a former soccer coach, pizza dad, and team tour leader, I represent that diversity to the board. And I believe that a more diverse board will be a more effective one. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Marshall?
Good evening. I was very gratified to receive the Journal News endorsement today, but I need to start by correcting a wonderful misprint about my age. I have not been 39 in a very long time. Next, I'd like to say that I am grateful for this opportunity to participate in one of the most significant elections the community can hold the election of Board of Education trustees, local government at its best. I am running because I consider public education the most important service that communities provide. Its mission is to provide opportunities for every child to reach his or her maximum potential, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, economic status, or disability. Public schools are places where we can all share in the diversity of our experiences and rejoice in them. Our public schools are places where we send our children to get their first taste of what the world is like out there. It is my passion to do what I can to ensure quality education for our children, and my belief that a different perspective only adds to achieving the highest quality in education that I choose to run. I'm a certified grants writer, hold a BA in communications, a master's degree in special education and regular education, was a former foundation and corporate relations officer in the fields of education, mental health care, and developmental disabilities. And I'm a mom with a 6th grader and a 1st grader who wants the best for them and for their peers. I was also a former community organizer in Brooklyn. I hope to use that experience to engage more families in ways that they can support our schools. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and for their work in promoting voter participation.
Thank you. All right. We'll now entertain questions from the floor. If there's anyone that has a question, could you please raise your hand? And there's a floating mic. You'll be given the mic to ask your question. Again, I ask that you limit your question to 30 seconds. You can direct your question to any one of the candidates or all of the candidates. Excuse me. So is there anyone that has a question they'd like to ask? Over here.
Given the current economic environment, how do you feel about the teacher salary increase that's being asked for in the new contract?
We'll begin with Mr. Hodys.
Well, I know there's negotiations, and we're not privy to the details of the negotiations, so I haven't formed an opinion yet on, I don't know how much of a raise they're seeking. I know they get some automatic raises. They have lanes that they get. I can't remember the exact percentage increase that they get, but there are some automatic raises that they're getting now. But I haven't formed an opinion yet because I don't know the details. I think once we're on the board, that's when you get the details of what the subject of the negotiations are.
Ms. Marshall?
Sure. I think that unless I have all the information, it's really hard to answer a question like that. I think given the current economic climate, I suppose it's not looked upon as something that people want to happen, but until I can be privy to exactly what's happening with the negotiations, I can get an informed opinion as to the overall impact.
Ms. O'Keefe?
I am privy to all the information, and I still can't answer that question. The board wants a fair and reasonable settlement. The community does as well. These are unprecedented and challenging financial times. We have passed the mediation stage. We are now in the fact-finding stage, which will begin June 1st. There is no number. There is no number right now. I can tell you that honestly. There is no number right now. We will begin the fact-finding June 1st. We will move forward from there. We are anxious to solve this. This is not right now. This is not our culture. But it will be solved in an equitable and fair and economically prudent way. And we will move forward. And we will be better for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question?
Hi, actually this question is for Emily. You stated in your flyer that you are dedicated to the elimination of unnecessary testing and are proud to have pushed for and have gotten the district to review the second grade Tonys and that they are no longer given. Actually, it was my understanding that the Tonys were no longer given because the company stopped publishing them and we are doing other testing in that place. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
I actually tried to find that information and was unable to find it. If that's the case, I suppose it wasn't published because no one's buying it. It was a test that had not been given in any other district for a couple of years. It was interesting that the test was being given, and your only way of knowing it really was that it was on the calendar. It is an optional standardized test, or it was an optional standardized test. I did ask for meetings to discuss it, to discuss the appropriateness of that. And I was received, and there was a discussion, and it was brought up at PAC meetings, which I also sit on at Warren. And the good news was that it was dropped.
Ms. O'Keefe, would you like to comment?
Yes, I would. There are standardized tests that we are forced to take in this district from New York State, but the tests I think that Ms. K is referring to is the children in second grade are still receiving testing. And I don't want to call it testing, I want to call it assessment. And obviously you have a degree in special education, I don't, but I was the special liaison representative to the board. Without assessments, we cannot fully find those children who need immediate academic intervention. You cannot make a subjective decision that this child is not reading up to par. I have seen every sheet, every IEP that has come out of the Special Services Department for the last 2 years. You must have, the amount of quantitative analysis they have of every child in this district who qualifies for any sort of intervention is staggering. It is a testament to the amazing work that our Special Services Division does. These children are still receiving assessments, as well they should. I want to know that my child has a reading problem in second grade, not in 8th grade. I want to know, I want it to be addressed as soon as possible, and for that reason, and we will continue to do assessing. And now I think there are up to 3 different assessments that are used in the second grade to make sure that these children who need services get them ASAP, and that's what they're for. Thank you.
Mr. Hodys, would you like to comment?
Very briefly, as a parent of a second grader, I like the idea of my child getting assessed. But as a board member, I wouldn't feel like I have enough information right now. I'd have to hear from subject matter experts, and I'd hear from people with a lot more experience than I have before I formulated an official opinion, a position to take on board. So in a position as trustee, I would have no position. As a position as a parent, I like the idea of my child being assessed.
Thank you. Is there another question from the floor?
Thanks. Hi. I think this question is for Ms. Cathy O'Keefe. You said in your opening statement that the realignment of the district, where 5th is dropped down and 3rd is dropped down, 2nd, excuse me, was a success. And I'm just wondering, how is the district measuring the success so that we know that that was a great decision or not, and what they're using to measure that by?
A lot of what we used to, and you worked very hard with me on the bond when it thankfully passed. How we look at it as a success was teachers, from what we've heard, have been quite happy with the realignment. The students obviously felt nothing. You weren't transferred back to another school. If you were at Daniel Warren, you stayed. If you were at Bellows, you stayed. If you were at the middle school in 5th grade, you stayed and went to 6th. The room that we needed, we got. It alleviated an unbelievable pressure point here at this campus. The 5th graders were small, but they took up a lot of room. And it has so far, we have been, other than not educational issues at all, some technical issues that have absolutely nothing to do with the child's education. It has been, and if you haven't had a chance to see the new facility at Daniel Warren, please call Mrs. Babcock, go see it. It is, again, a wonderful facility. It was built on time, it was built under budget, and was exactly what this district needed. I was here when we took back Daniel Warren, which was at the time exactly what we needed. I was here when the crowding was so bad that my daughter's classroom was 1/2 of the library at Bellows. They realized there was going to be a lot of children. They threw up a wall, and I mean, it was a great year for her. She didn't know, but the bond did what it was, exactly what it was supposed to do. And I would qualify it as, yes, a huge success.
So the way you quantify the success, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hodys, would you like to comment?
Both my children are at Daniel Warren. always been at Denoir. I have no basis for comparison to what it was like before. So I have no answer.
Ms. Marshall?
Can you repeat the question, please?
It was that the assessment or the idea that the realignment of the district had been a success, and I was asking what the quantifiable measures were that we know it's a success. We might feel it's a success, but are we measuring how we know it's a success? That's my question.
No, that's an interesting question because, Cathy was talking about assessments. And I don't know, moving children to, the K-2 model is a pretty typical model, so the K-1 model really was lacking. And, having the second graders in a building with older children just was not developmentally appropriate. And I think things like the assessments that Cathy were talking about, maybe were designed to move the kids from second to third grade. I think in just getting back to the issue about the Tonys, when they were being given, what was happening, we were talking about assessments, was that there was information that standardized testing was going to occur in third grade, and the second grade Tonys were seen as test prep. To talk about assessments and how to quantify, how the children are doing, authentic assessments given by teachers are a wonderful tool in the early grades. And I wonder if that's something that maybe is being discussed or done as part of this realignment.
Thank you. Is there another question from the floor?
I'll try for one that you can answer. What is your opinion on tenure for teachers in high school, elementary school?
You really don't like the hot button stuff.
Okay, so,
Not me.
okay, oh, to you? Okay.
My understanding is that tenure is set at the state level, and it's dictated to us.
Right, but what's your opinion?
I'll tell you, I have not been involved in education, so I come new to these issues. I have not formed an opinion on tenure. I haven't formed an opinion on probably quite a few things related to education. However, I think the role of the board person is not to be a subject matter expert, but to take in information from subject matter experts, people who do have expertise in the field. There's probably treatises written on tenure. No, I have not formed an opinion, and I cannot form an opinion in the next 2 minutes. I really apologize for that. But you could probably think of a dozen hot button education issues that I would say I haven't formed an opinion about. So I apologize.
Ms. Marshall?
Sure. I remember a couple of years ago, I went on a trip with my son's school, and one of the things I brought home, because I'm a former teacher, was a sheet that apparently was distributed to teachers at the turn of the century. And it was a list of all the things they had to bring with them, and all the things that they could and could not do. So I think we have to remember that once upon a time, long ago. But this is now. I think tenure did some wonderful things in terms of job security to the profession at a point when it needed it. I do think it's something that should be revisited. The teachers union is phenomenally powerful, and I just think it's going to be a long process. But I do think it's something that ultimately will be revisited.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
As a sitting member on the Board of Education, I almost want to take the fifth on this one. But as a parent and a taxpayer, I see where tenure came from, I see where it is today, and I think in the future things will change dramatically. Exactly as Mrs. Marshall said, but this is today. And tenure this is the only profession in America education. It goes right K through college, K through grad school. I mean, it's not just public education, it's everything. There is change in the air, and it will happen. Will it happen at Rhinebeck? I don't think our 1,500 student community has the clout to change something like that, but there is change in the air, and it will happen. It definitely will happen. Thank you.
Is there another question from the floor? Right here.
I will leave the mic, it's okay. Do you have any specific changes you want to make in school district policies, programs, thank you, or the various school curricula being offered? And if so, what changes do you want to make and why?
So we'll begin with Ms. Marshall.
I love a foreign language program. I think, you know, we talk about the 21st Century Learning Initiative and preparing our children for the global economy. You know, this budget isn't allowing for it. I'm hoping that there's some creative wiggle room down the road, and that I can work with the board to make that happen, because I think it's what's going to prepare our kids and give them that edge. Everyone needs to have a second language. I think that I would like to be more active or proactive about removing some of the pressures on teachers with regard to test prep for standardized testing. And that's biggie. That's not going to be me as an individual. It's going to be a collaborative effort. And I think Rhinebeck is well positioned to get that initiative going and engage local legislators towards some kind of reform that will free up our teachers to give our children differentiated learning, which can be sporadic, but that is driven by the need to test, which are mandates at this point.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
First, let me say we have a foreign language program. We have an excellent foreign language program. It starts in 5th grade. We had an elementary education program. The professionals in our district looked at it, looked at the time requirements that our students in the grammar school are under, especially next year, when they have yet another 2 sessions a week removed from them, so that due to a state mandate. They looked at the program. They discovered it was not effective and that their talents could be very much better used elsewhere at a higher grade. The foreign language program here at Rhinebeck is fully a romantic, is it romance or Latin? It's romance, right? Very romantic here, right? And that is where we're putting all our efforts. It is a testament to our foreign language department, the scores that our students get on the AP Spanish, AP Italian, AP French. As a matter of fact, our Italian teachers here at Rhinebeck have been asked and have gone to other school districts throughout New England to share their talents in the teaching of Italian to other school districts. So in that regard, we're doing everything quite well in the foreign language program. It's almost when you go to a diner and they have a 52-page menu, and you say to yourself, how can they make lobster thermidor and scrambled eggs? How can you? We're putting our talent and our money to precisely target the excellence that we have achieved, and we're sticking to that, and it seems to be working quite well. And in terms of curricula, I'm the last one to tell any of our professionals where the curricula should be going. Absolutely, the last one. I leave it to the professionals that we have hired, who so far have done an excellent job.
Thank you. Mr. Hodys?
Thanks. I hope this qualifies. I would like to investigate at the high school level digitized textbooks. I think it's going to be archaic. We'll look back on it. The kids are carrying 30 pounds of books going from school. Why can't they be digitized? Now, I know there's publishing companies that are opposed to it, but it's coming. There was an article in the Times earlier in the week about Kindle. And in one line, it mentioned that it may come to textbooks. Now, how do you address that is a real issue. I mean, are the kids going to carry CD-ROMs? Are they going to carry laptops? Are they all going to be issued a Kindle? will that information be stored on a centralized server someplace in high school so that all the kids can download it from home? I don't know, but that's something I really would like to investigate. And a related issue is, how does that affect the library? I mentioned the library in my opening. What's a library if it doesn't house all those books? I mean, and what's the sense? If nobody's going to the library to do research, then what's the function of the library? Because nobody's doing research at the library, folks, anymore. Nobody's going to the shelves, taking out a book, pulling it down, and then giving it back to the librarian to restack it. Why waste all that time and space? So those are the kinds of things I would like to investigate. It's not exactly curriculum, but at least I had something to say this time.
Is there another question from the floor?
I just want to expand on what you were talking about with the curriculum a little bit. I have 2 second graders and a 5th grader. And in the 21st Century Learning meeting and some of the other meetings, a lot of the discussion about curriculum was about 5th grade and above, middle school, high school. And I kind of feel like my children who are 7 are extremely technically savvy. They show me how to use my iPod, my cell phone, everything. Getting rid of the foreign language, I understand why it was done in the lower grades, but it was just gotten rid of instead of reworked into something that works. My son has a Japanese friend who came in with no English skills, learned it in a month. He has another friend from other countries who came in knowing the foreign language. What is being done for the younger kids? I feel like everything's being taken away. Nothing's being added to their curriculum.
Ms. O'Keefe?
I'm not sure exactly what's being done for the younger children. I'm not exactly sure what that question refers. But what I'll say in terms of everything we look at as a board, I'll say it from a board perspective, is K through 12, and in often cases pre-K through 12. We don't rob Peter to pay Paul. That in no way happens. The K through, I guess if you want to classify it, K through 5 as being grammar, and we'll say that 6th grade starts the middle school experience. Our superintendent of curriculum, it's a K through 12 experience. If something's being taken away, there certainly is no void left. I mean, I've never sensed some huge void in their day. The ramifications of mandates have taken it to a point where we've simply run out of time, and oftentimes there just are not enough. To do extremely, I think what you're trying to get at, to do an extremely effective language program is going to take more than 2 20-minute sections per week. It just will. Any educator will tell you that. We didn't even have that to offer our children. We didn't have that time frame. It was there, it was taken away by the state. We decided to focus our efforts where we felt that they could do the best, good, and it's a fluid experience. Nothing is set in stone. So that is something that we are looking at, and obviously trying to keep on top of with our LOTE staff. Thank you.
Mr. Hodys?
If we're talking about a foreign language, I would love my kids to have a foreign language in 1st and 2nd grade. To me, as a layperson, it sounds phenomenal. But I have to defer it to people who have experience in that field and get their input and see what they have to say about it. So, but it sounds great. I would come to that type of discussion with a lot of excitement. But from what I'm hearing, there was a pilot program and it didn't work out very well. I have to investigate why it didn't work out, who made that assessment. But foreign language sounds super. I don't know what it costs either.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
I don't know what I can say in terms of what's being offered, since I'm not in charge of the curriculum, but I will say, and the research bears it, that it is very easy to teach children a second language in the very early grades. So I do hope that it will be revisited. Maybe somehow compress other subject areas. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the magic bullet, but I think, and I'd like to believe that if you want it badly enough, you can somehow make it work and just try to get the best research you can, because get the best people in the district that you can, or outside help somehow, if you can, to make it happen, if that is truly what you think is important, if that's what you value. I will say one thing that I've seen, particularly in the lower grades and at Warren, is that I had some concerns about the math program. And this is just to speak to the lower grades. I have seen them address a main issue I had in getting the foundation skills. I've seen my son, my first grader, doing things that reflect that he's developing an understanding of the composition of numbers, which is something you need for multiplication, which was a big issue in the upper grades. So that I've seen, and that's encouraging, because I think that means that, I mean, obviously it means that they heard what we were saying, and they're taking steps to give the kids now those basics, so that when they get to 5th grade, they can work those numbers.
Thank you. Is there another question? Behind you.
I have 2 young children. One is in Daniel Warren and one is not yet in the school system. And I just wanted to ask the 3 of you about a comment that a friend of mine made about a year ago, who also has 2 young children, where she said that she feels that the Rhinebeck district can do a lot for children who have special needs, and does do a lot for children with special needs, but does not necessarily do a lot for children who are especially gifted. And I wanted to just hear your comments on that.
We'll begin with Mr. Hodys.
I will say that I share your friend's frustration. I felt the same way. I don't know why it is. Something I'm interested in.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Sure. Excuse me. I think that in order to provide gifted programs and special ed programs, you have to have differentiated learning, I mean true differentiated learning. And we have to figure out ways to give the teachers what they need in the classroom to deal with each child's individual needs. I know it sounds like a tall order, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I would like to see, or at least I think, that one way that we can give those children what they need and what they deserve. Gifted special needs is to give the teacher the support in the classroom to make that happen. You know, whether it's freeing up the test preparation time or whatever it takes, you know, just plan it out and make it happen.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
Yes, thank you. I have experienced the K through 12 Rhinebeck panorama. I can honestly say that every child, every student at Rhinebeck, whether they need special needs or they're gifted or they're just a terrific child, every child that I've seen has had an amazing base from the staff, the teachers, the support staff, the administration rather, to help that child live up to their full potential. And what the word gifted is a very amorphous term. A child can be extremely gifted in one thing, if that's a term you want to use, and not so gifted in another. But what I've seen from the spectrum of the educational experience at Rhinebeck is that the potential of these children is, even if they don't want it to be, it is yanked out of them. This school, the biggest asset we have is our size. And that leads to a terrifically supportive, productive, one-on-one experience here for a student at Rhinebeck, whether they're in the special services classification or not. And I've been very proud to say that, as I said before, that my students go to Rhinebeck, that they've graduated from Rhinebeck and done quite well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions. And it's nice it's a nice feeling to know that I can be providing that kind of comfort level for some of the parents in the community. You know, I'm sure there are other parents that might not be unique to me, but at least I think that sitting on the board kind of brings a comfort level in terms of representing some kind of diversity, just to put a different face on it. I talked to a lot of people from all throughout Rhinebeck. The playgrounds are wonderful places to get to know people, but I've done a lot of community organizing in New York City, and actually through my work as legislation chair, just the collaborations that I feel are happening and that I've been privileged to be a part of, I think are very helpful skills to have in enhancing and supporting diversity.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
Yes, as I mentioned before in my opening statement, my platform for this campaign is to simply promote excellence in the Rhinebeck School District. Every child, regardless, every taxpayer, regardless, is the same and deserves an excellent school district, deserves an excellent fiscally responsible school district, and deserves the fine administration that we have today that serves them equally, every one of them, the same. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hodys?
That's a great question. My work, we manage the wide area network for an agency of the Department of Defense. And about a third of my staff are cable installers. They go across the country literally pulling cable. These are $15 an hour guys. $12, $15 an hour. The guys who are in charge are maybe $28 an hour. They're the project managers on those particular projects. I'm working with these guys all the time, and I hear all their issues. Whether it's child care, I don't want to get into it. Financial stress. I'm working with them on a daily basis. I also work with the engineers and the senior engineers, and I work with the executives. So I work with all of them, and I think that gives me a pretty good exposure to the gamut. I think that's a great question.
Thank you. Is there another question from the floor? There's one over here. Any other ones before? Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to know what makes a good school board candidate, and if elected, what is your mission statement?
We'll start with Ms. O'Keefe.
Rosemary. What makes a good school board trustee? I think the primary thing I've discovered over the past 3 years is the ability to work, as they always say, works and plays well with others. The group dynamic is such that if you've been privy and just so lucky to come to one of our planning sessions, it's an interesting dynamic. I've learned that we have to work together, we have to come to a consensus. The questions are extremely difficult. We're talking about people's taxes. We're talking about people's children. Money and children, it doesn't get any more sensitive than that. And I think that most of all, the group dynamic and being able to come together as a cohesive group at the end of a very heated discussion and move the district forward would most simply be the biggest, absolutely the biggest lesson that I've learned, and I think the biggest asset for a board trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hodys?
Let me use your question to illustrate my point. There is no ideal trustee, there is no ideal candidate, because it's the collective that works. So if you have, let's say your ideal candidate, and you have 6 of them, you don't have the best board. You need a diverse board with different points of view and different perspectives, and then you have the most effective board you can have. And that's my point. That's part of why I'm running. And I think that I represent that diversity. That's kind of what. Now, mission statement. I've been part of a lot of meetings talking about mission statements. I think I have an opinion about mission statements. Maybe I don't have an opinion about tenure. I have an opinion about mission statements. You're going to waste a lot of time working on a mission statement. But I want kids to be able to achieve, to maximize their potential and succeed. And you can define success in many different ways, but that's the ultimate goal. Maximizing their individual's potential and success.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
I think the district has a mission statement, and that is to provide an excellent education for every child in its district, and I'm certainly uphold that and do my best to support that. I think what makes a good board candidate is the desire and the passion to make the best, to create the best possible educational environment for every child, and to work with your fellow board members, and agree to disagree because that will happen, and to stretch yourself, and to not sit back and push each other and create a synergy that will make good things happen.
Thank you. Is there another question?
I'm just curious what each of your opinions are on 21st century learning. Like, what does that mean to each of you?
Begin with Mr. Hodys.
I watched it online. I watched the presentation online. And I loved that. I don't know, by a show of hands, have many of you gone, seen that or seen it online or gone to it? Whoever put that together, it was great. I really enjoyed it. And that's exactly what I'm talking about when we talk about the library or digitizing the books. It's having a long-term approach and preparing kids for what employers are going to expect of them and what universities are going to expect of them in the next century. So, and those watching at home, if you haven't seen that presentation, it's online, it's great.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
I just want to say, before I get into 21st century learning, don't get rid of books. I keep hearing about technology. That's wonderful. Everybody does research online, but there's something to be said for having books. Anyway, the 21st Century Learning Initiative, I think there's a little bit of a misconception. I was involved on the parent committee, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people seem to be under the impression that it's solely a technological initiative, and it's part of it. I think initially it was driven that way, and that was the impetus for that. It was also, I think, historically, community leaders and business people not seeing the skills that they needed in the workforce. So they got together and kind of came up with this plan as to what are the things that you would look for, and how can you provide those skills or an environment to create those skills. So, in short, I guess a snapshot is that they were seeing a big push towards drilling and the whole test prep environment. It was an initiative, or it is an initiative, to free that up and promote out-of-the-box thinking and prepare students for a global economy, which again, going back to foreign language, and yes, I know that, I think you referred to language at the early grades, but that's part of it. It's language, it's engaging parents in the process, which I think is critical, and really has a very strong and powerful potential for home-to-school partnerships in building those critical thinking skills and out-of-the-box thinking, things that are really going to be preparing students for the way the world is working now.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
Thank you. The 21st Century Initiative was first brought to my attention while I was a trustee, and it has become the guidepost and just a huge arrow in almost all of our meetings and all of our projections for the future. It's forced people my age, which is 32, to realize that it is, and now that I have a daughter who's in the workforce, and it is a new world out there, and this, and the wonderful consultants that we have working with us, it is dragging body and soul the school district into this new millennium. And it is eye-opening, it is awe-inspiring, it grounds almost all the decisions that we've been making. It is not something you can hold, it's not a tangible item, and yet you can feel it in the room when we have our discussions, that this is going to, and this initiative has already helped us form a much clearer vision for the future, which is one of the reasons I joined the board in the first place, because I want 15 years from now to look back and say, yeah, we did that, we were part of that, we had Rhinebeck, we were pushing and shoving us right into the future. And hopefully future board members will look back and say, oh wow, that was great that they did that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another question from the floor? What's that? Oh, right here. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Got to raise
So looking into the 21st century, what would you do differently today in Rhinebeck to prepare the children for paperless environment, iPods, computers? Heard somebody say one day you could bring your laptop into high school now. That was brought to my attention by my 8th grader. So how would you start looking to improve the 21st century curriculum to prepare a child who will go and be wireless in high school and continue completely into college and then go into the working environment like I am today, where everything is wireless, there's no more paper, there is nothing at this point. And taking some people who are older and trying to get them to change their way and looking at the younger age through the 12th grade to get them prepared for that, because that is the wave of the future.
Thank you. All right, we'll begin with Ms. Marshall.
Sure. Funding. Everyone's going to need a computer, and some kids don't have them. So, that's going to be a challenge. You do have to prepare them to be literate in computers and technology. So we have to start laying the groundwork to make it happen. And I suppose that's going to change the direction of where we go and what we do to support funding in the schools, but that's definitely something that has to happen. We have to figure out a way for every child to have technology. Some children may not have computers at home. The school will have to wind up being the center, the access, or maybe forge, links with libraries or whatever that can offer some kind of support for children to be able to access technology.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
Thank you, Penny, for the question. The technology issue is actually where I wrote down to myself vision for the future, physical plant, which no one talks about the physical plant, but that's something that is on the mind of the board quite often. And technology was my very second list on there. I'm a technological idiot. That is why I defer 100% to the technological. We have some amazing technological experts here at Rhinebeck, and we also have a wonderful organization who works with us. They are not Rhinebeck employees. They are we wouldn't call them a consultant, but they work with us and have taken us to new levels, and our children have taken us to new levels. Yes, there are many schools now that you do have your own laptop. Many of them public. I know the West Hampton School District at one point, several years ago, we were considering taking a trip to West Hampton. I volunteered to go, actually. But they give laptops to all their children in 6th grade. They're just given, and they keep them all through that's a budgetary issue beyond anything I can even think of. So money is an issue. We have terrific technology here at the school that all the children can use. And so far, it's been okay. But what Mr. Hodys was saying about the library becoming a workstation instead of a warehouse, that is exactly where all that phenomenal technology can really blossom. And hopefully in the future that will happen. Thank you.
Mr. Hodys?
Yeah, hopefully I can have some input. The network that I mentioned that we're responsible for supports 12,000 users. Now, you can imagine how many computers and laptops and BlackBerries those 12,000 users use. my group doesn't manage that equipment, but there were other groups that do. And I see some of the issues there. The number of issues are enormous. Obviously, you have hardware issues and you have security issues. Like you say, who's going to train the teachers who are maybe from a different generation? So there's a world of things there. When I graduated college in 1984, I had a typewriter and nobody had a PC. I had a typewriter and a big jar of Lego. When my wife graduated college in 1990, personal computers were ubiquitous. And they were everywhere. They were required of freshmen. And that's now over a 6-year period. So we're not dreaming here. This is definitely coming. And I applaud you for recognizing it. That's exactly the kind of discussion I want to be a part of.
Thank you. Is there another question from the floor? No? I have some prepared questions here. We have time for maybe one or two more. What do you consider to be the role of the school board in the Rhinebeck School District, and why do you want to be on the board? That's the question. And Ms. O'Keefe, we'll start with you.
Thank you. The role of the school board is really very easy, and the role of a trustee is to be a part of that board, to work as in the group. The board doesn't have all that much power. We're allowed to set policy, which is actually brought to us from the superintendent, and we are allowed to hire the superintendent. And basically, that's it. We don't set curriculum. We do put together, we don't put together. We approve a budget that is presented to us. We work on it. We work very hard on it. No one harder than Dr. Bucci, I must add. But the budget, presenting a budget to the community once a year, that's probably our biggest job. Setting policy. Our policy book is a fabulous read. If you haven't read it, please do stop by. It's about this thick. That's a fluid document. It changes. Talk about electronics. We have a whole new chapter just on electronics, what you can and can't bring to school, what you can and cannot have in your classroom. So it's a very fluid text. And again, the relationship the board has with the superintendent. And that is the role of the Board of Education in any district. Thank you.
Mr. Hodys?
My impression of the board is to incorporate the values of the community and set policy. And to set the goals for the board, thinking long term. And I want to be a part of that because I think there's a lot of things that are going to be happening over the next 3, 5, and 7 years that are going to affect our kids' lives in a major way. And that's exactly why I'm doing this, to be a part of that discussion. And then that's the long term. Then there's the immediate issues of the economy and the budget. And I think I can contribute there as well because I have a background in managing a budget.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Well, in a nutshell, I see the role of the board as protecting our schools. And I just happen to have a copy of the statement on the governance role, excuse me, of a trustee or board member. And among the best practices for boards to follow are approving strategic plans, budgets, policies, plans of operation, development plans and goals, contracts, implementing standards of operation, key financial and program reports, and other items, using good judgment and analyzing matters that may impact the institution. I think that's my favorite.
Thank you. And then I guess, any other questions? So this will be the last question that we'll have time for this evening before we begin closing statements. Are there any new initiatives that you would suggest to enhance opportunities and preparation of the district's children? How would you reallocate resources to make this happen? We'll start with Mr. Hodys.
You know, I think we talked about it. I love the idea of thinking about the effect of technology, of whether laptops are being used, whether it's Kindles that are being used, whether it's iPods being used, whatever that device is going to be. How are we going to instruct our teachers to teach the kids how are we going to train our librarians? If the concept of a library is going to change so dramatically, how are we going to train our librarians who have been doing the same thing for decades? Those are the kinds of issues I want to be a part of. Do I have I don't have a specific initiative, as I said.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Thank you. I believe we have teams throughout the grades, and I think it would be a great initiative. And actually, I think we kind of have something like that now where the grades sit down and kind of talk about the things they'd like to see. And I think I'd like to expand that dialogue and maybe include parents in the conversation. Just a thought. I think it's nice to be able to provide a forum where parents can provide input. And curriculum, I do think that's important because they're our clients and we've got to keep them happy. But I do think that the 21st Century Learning Initiative allows for that to happen. So I would just say that I would like to expand or fully support or enhance those things that the 21st Century Learning Initiative can bring to the table, and maybe look at them on a building by building level and leave it up to the teams at the building and infuse that into each building.
Thank you. And Ms. O'Keefe?
Yes, this is an unprecedented economic time. And I think now there are a lot of very smart people in this district. Some are parents, some are just community members and taxpayers. I think it's time to open a very serious discussion about public school funding and how, and I would like to incorporate as many people in the community as possible who may never have even thought about it. It's time to really sit down as a small bedroom community with absolutely very little commerce. It's time to really relook at the way New York State, even if it starts at Rhinebeck, it's time to relook at the way we fund public education. And that is something, the more I look at our relationship with Albany, which is not pretty, and our relationship with Washington, there has to be a change. And we have to look to experts, and we have some phenomenally brilliant people right here in the district. That is something I would really like to work on in the next 3 years if I'm elected. And I just do want to say again that the 21st Century Initiative is such a powerful moving force. Things are coming out of that initiative every day that will take us in a terrifically forward direction. And I look to that almost daily to see where this district might go in the future.
Thank you. That concludes question and answers. And we'll now move on to closing statements. We'll begin with Ms. Marshall. So you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I've been going to board meetings for years. And barring catastrophe, I've rarely missed a board meeting in the last 2 years. I prefer the public meetings because they are transparent and allow for public input, which the planning sessions do not. For too long, I was the only other parent in the room besides the officers that were giving presentations, and I worked hard to bring more people into the meetings that lead up to the budget vote so that the community understood what they were voting for and could have their say and avoid misunderstandings that could adversely impact any planning for our schools. I believe that you can support your schools by providing a perspective that is different and by creating forums where you can offer meaningful dialogue with people you feel comfortable with and trust. It's difficult to ask questions if you're not comfortable in the process or with the people you are asking. The administrators, Board of Ed trustees, and teachers all know that what I do is ask questions. And often they can be uncomfortable, but I ask them anyway. I have had some wonderful conversations in this district with many of the people here. And some that I found could have gone better, but I did what I had to do in order to have those conversations. Finally, the current economic climate will require commitment, creativity, and energy. And I believe that my involvement in the district over the years has proof that I have these qualities to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hodys?
Thank you. Thank you all again for coming, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. We have a gem of a school district here. Only 1,500 students from K to 12, and yet we have full-day kindergarten, an excellent and caring faculty, state-of-the-art facilities, 20 nationally certified AP classes, an amazing high school musical, a championship mock trial team, a wide variety of school sports and extracurricular activities, and all of this without a significant commercial tax source of revenue. We have so much to be proud of, but we can't afford to rest on our laurels. Yes, I want to preserve what we have in the face of serious economic challenge, but I also want to stay ahead of the curve and prepare our students for the demands of employers and universities in the 21st century. I can help because I have the background, experience, and perspective that would be an asset to the board. 12 years practicing law, 9 years of project management experience will be useful as the board makes policy and sets goals and objectives, and negotiates and collaborates with the unions and communicates with the community in general and parents in particular. On a more personal level, I have the temperament for the job. I work well as part of a team. I'm not one for drama. I have no axe to grind or singular agenda or historical prejudice. I come to the board with humility too, recognizing that there is a lot I have to learn about education as well as state and local politics. I expect that I'll be able to work productively with my colleagues on the board, the administration, and the various stakeholders to meet the significant challenges of the next few years, to prepare our students with the tools they need to thrive and succeed when they move beyond our borders, and to preserve the quality and uniqueness of this gem of a school district. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. O'Keefe?
I believe my experience in institutional memory, coupled with a very long volunteer career at Rhinebeck, translates into immediate productivity as a trustee. I have a kindergarten through college perspective, which allows me to take a broad view of the Rhinebeck educational experience. I know the issues, and I understand exactly what can and cannot be accomplished. I have the experience. I definitely have the motivation. You all are very much to be commended for coming out tonight. If you're a parent, a homeowner, or a prospective Rhinebeck resident, it is really vital that you are aware of all of these issues that we've discussed this evening. I'm a diligent and committed Rhinebeck advocate, and whether re-elected or not, I will continue to work hard for all the taxpayers of this district by continuing my efforts to make Rhinebeck the best it can be. As you decide which two candidates deserve your vote for trustee, please remember that the single most important lever you can push on May 19th is the budget. Please vote yes on the budget. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for participating tonight. I can't tell you how impressed I am that there was, this all came from you. Kept the conversation going. I think the questions were broad. I think they explored a whole number of areas. It gave us a chance really to learn. And I want to thank our candidates, Al Hodys, Cathy O'Keefe, Emily Marshall. Wow.
Thank you.
That was hard work, and thank you very much. I also want to thank the Rhinebeck Schools for providing us with this venue. I want to thank Superintendent Peter Mustick, Rhinebeck District Clerk Veronica Sessler. Their help was indispensable in pulling this together. Pat Rinell of the theater department head and her troupe of magic makers who made this possible, lit the room and made the sound work. It was terrific. Cathy Kastenbaum, who helped us with communications and technical expertise. Our moderator, Laura Fratt. Our timekeepers, Nate Levin and Susan Jensen. Our ushers, who were there with their mics, thank you very much. And particularly to Sandhya Sivarao, who so gracefully pulled this whole event together. Thank you to all of you. And don't forget, Election Day is the 19th, Tuesday the 19th, and please vote. And you can watch the replays of this program on LMC-TV.